Hey everyone, my name is Gui Guimaraes, also known as Moonlight Orange, and I'm here today to show you guys the process of one of my cyber candy girls. And the thing about today's video is that I'm recording a painting that I'm doing using clips to the paint, and the version I have is the version X. And I've been using Clip Studio for quite some time now, and especially for the idealization process, I find it very useful. I always get some very nice and clean lines, and it's super fast. In this case, I'm running it like from a Cintiq Companion, so it's a Wacom device, and it's not extremely powerful, and it's still like the lines are so smooth and always comes flowing pretty nicely. And as you can see here, I'm just painting and I can block the pose pretty well. And the options I have for the adjustments and how I configure my brush are really amazing. For people who are used to other painting softwares, when I start using a software like Clip Studio that's really focusing on the drawing part, for the illustrator and the concept artist, it really makes the difference. They have a lot of building tools that in other softwares are often plugins. Like every brush you make, you can configure the correction of the brush. It's basically a smoothing of your line. So if you need to make a precise curve or a circular shape, it helps you, and you can turn it off if you don't feel like using it. But overall, I feel that the pressure is on my tablet works really well on Clip Studio. Apart from that, all the other configurations and the layer system that you might expect, they are there. But I feel that the speed is quite amazing when you're really just drawing. It's pretty good. And you probably know, if you do some recordings too, you know that when you're recording the screen, especially if your computer is not like super powerful, you get a bit of slowdown. But in this case, my painting was not compromised at all. So I'm gonna talk a bit about the process I'm doing here, and when it's relevant, I'm gonna bring some aspect of the software that for me were a surprise when I was first starting to use it. If you watch some of my process, you can see here that I'm doing like translating everything that I do in other software to Clip Studio. I start with a rough sketch just to try to define the design of the character. In fact, for this character, I decided to draw on one of my cyber candy girls because I really like drawing them, and it's something that I'm pretty confident to draw, and I can focus on the design. I know that the process is nailed. I know that I'm gonna get to a nice result, but I need to define the design, and I can spend most of my time just focusing on getting the design to work. So on this first sketch, I'm trying to give the viewer a bit some hints of what this character is, like how she is, what's her personality, and I can do that through the pose, to her face, and through her clothes. So you'll see that I added some like duct tape on her legs. Every time I draw them, the cyber candy girls, I feel that they're too clean, so I start doing some like damage, and so like they're patching themselves up just to make them look a bit more lived, like they're not just brand new. And I go straight for like a blocking for the colors. As soon as I'm happy with the design, I start blocking the colors. So what I'm doing here is just I'm making a mask of the silhouette of the character. You saw that I used the selection magic wand to make a selection at first. And one good thing about Clip Studio is that you can choose the magic wand to fill gaps. So even if your line is not all consistent, the software can close those gaps. So you can choose the size of the gap. So even if your line is messier, like mine was, I just had to paint to make the selection for the hair, because all the rest of the body, the software took care of making the selection. So here is the way I work. I create this base, the orange one, and then all the other layers, they are cut in the shape of this this base layer, and it's just a button click for you to do that in Clip Studio. And as a tip for you to do that efficiently is that when you create the first layer that's clipping on the layer below, instead of creating the new layer on top of this layer, you create a new layer under it, so it will already be clipping on the base, so you don't need to change the layer type all the time. So as you see, like I put all the layers clipping. You see that the orange on the layers, like next to the thumbnail of the layer, there's an orange bar. It just shows that it's clipping on using the layer below as like the transparency channel, if you will. So I can just paint with like very broad brush strokes, and it's not going to go out of my silhouette. And I use this step, like I create all these colors separately, because I want to have the freedom to adjust the color. You know, I'm not sure about if I want these colors. You see that I can test the transparency of the colors of the materials. I can adjust her skin tone. I can change all of them independently. You see that I just tweaked her skin tone, made it a bit darker, and now I'm making everything a bit darker, because when I draw my glowing girls, the Cyber Candy Girls series, I think the glow is a very important part of it, and the way to make the glow pop more is to make everything darker. And I make it darker, but not just darker, I put the color. So in this case I'm using this dark blue, very saturated, to make the whole character a bit more blue, and this is not affecting the glow layer. Okay, I was happy with the colors and everything, and now I'm starting to clean up the lines a bit, because I have the shapes of the parts, I have the volumes, I have the expression, but I need a bit more definition to make it easier when I'm doing the final painting, you know. So what I'm doing here is just I'm redrawing and fixing stuff where I see fit, and trying to adjust silhouettes. I'm finishing the design and cleaning up the piece at the same time. I see that a lot of people don't do this process, but for me it's pretty useful, because when I'm designing I can focus on designing, and when I'm cleaning up I focus on cleaning up. I don't mix those steps, so I can focus on one thing at a time. Of course I'm still doing some small design changes, but I'm trying not to change my mind like in the basic level, no. I only move to clean up of the lines when I'm pretty happy with the design, or else I just keep changing the base. But then when I move forward, you see that I just added a small detail on the neck piece. Those kind of changes are okay to do that there when I'm doing the final lines, but bigger changes I would rather do it on the sketch. But that said, I wouldn't limit myself. If I really feel that I have a better idea, I'll just go ahead, and I would like advise everyone to do that and go ahead and change the base and really just try to bring your piece to the next level. Let me see about another characteristic of my drawing here. I'm using the same brush that I used for sketching, but I'm using it at a smaller size, and I'm not changing its size. So this is a brush that has it's a pencil that I use as base, and I only have a variation on the opacity and not on the thickness. And if I want a thicker line, I just paint it twice on the place and I get a thicker line. The reason why I'm not using a brush with the thickness variations is because I'm gonna paint. I'm gonna try to get rid of most of these lines, and I'm gonna use the painting to give volume and depth to this character. When you're not playing to full paint your character, it's really worth to use like a lot of thickness variation on the line, so you can give depth and volume with that. But in my case, I'm using the lines more of a guide for me. I'm still gonna leave a bit of them because I like when the drawing gets a bit of this. I would say like you can see a bit of the construction lines and doesn't look too much digital. I kind of like with this bit of aspect for my drawings, and I like to see the brush strokes, so I'm gonna leave this at the end. Yeah, as you see, like even on the leg here, I just fixed some parts of the leg, and the shoe design was really not there, and I'm still thinking what should I do for the shoes, and just playing around the shapes with the perspective until I find something that I'm quite happy with, and then I move forward. I'm just getting rid of the dots that are appearing because there's some problem with the palm was hitting my palm to the screen all the time. And at this point I was really not focusing on the shoes for this drawing, so I feel that the foot was a bit too small. But then when I start refining, I fix those things. It's just for me it's easier to pick a battle at a time, you know. So when I start the design step, I was focused on the design, and then I went to colors. And now this character, even though it's just lines, in my head I can see it's colorful, you know. So I kind of know the weight of each part, and this helps me like balance the character. I know that I'm gonna bring some contrast for the shoes, so I had to define them a bit more, and I'm gonna bring some contrast to the neck area and the head. And just to not leave the leg all empty, I did those details for her kneecaps. They have a bit of text, so I just moved a bit of the tech that was just on her upper body to her legs, and now you can see that her legs are also robotic and not just her arms. And I'm trying to tell a bit of story with that, you know, like the way I'm trying to design the character is it's in a way that I'm gonna show a bit of information about what this character could be, how the character is made, like design wise and story wise. As you can see, like the lines are coming out pretty well, and you saw that I copied the arm like from one side to another. I'm transforming a lot, and this really helps like to establish the design faster, since the arms are the same. But I try not keep things super symmetrical. I just change a bit when I copy the arm, just to make sure that I have enough variety. So I'm erasing a bit of the original sketch, because you can see that on the right I have two layers for the lines, the first one and this one that clean up. But I'm leaving a bit of the original sketch. And here I went back to the orange part, and now I'm cleaning up again the silhouette, just because when I did the final lines I made them thinner, so I just need to adjust it again. And I added this strand of hair. I thought it was missing something on the silhouette on this side. I changed a bit the hand pose. So I'm basically like reworking this whole part, just to make sure that when I paint, I'm gonna use this as a base. So I don't want the paint just going outside the lines. You know? You see that on the shoes, I have a bit more changes because they were rougher, and I changed the design a bit. But overall, the other parts, not a lot changed. I know it sounds a bit of rework, but it's pretty useful. And I'm going to do that to all the layers. I'm gonna see if they're going out of the zone that they should be, and I'm gonna clean up the borders a bit and extend the borders as needed. One of the things I really liked about the Clip Studio when I start to use is that you can basically put shortcuts for everything. You know, every brush you create, every action, everything you can attach a shortcut to it. And you can also like even attach the same shortcut for two things. So for example, I have B for my main brush, and I have B for my soft brush. So if I press B once, it goes to my hard brush. If I press B again, it cycles to my soft brush. So when you get used to this process, you get so fast at sketching and painting. It's really amazing. We can there's a lot of options for brushes. You can customize them completely. I really like to stay with the standard brushes. I have the soft round brush and hard round brush, and those are the brushes I use. I don't use blending for the painting. I usually just I try to control the pressure on my brush, and the Clip Studio allows for that, like really nicely. You can just control precisely the pressure that I want, and with this I can do very neat shading. So after I put the colors back and I adjust the layers, I'm going back and adding a bit of a skylight and local colors like a nose, stuff like that. And the way I go for the skylight is basically I try to imagine what are the parts on this drawing that are facing up, and I paint them blue in this case. I'm using like the layer on this in screen mode, so it's just like the light part of the paint that gets that stays on the canvas. And I'm trying to think about how the anatomy and how the material works. So I'm adding wrinkles and I'm trying to follow the bone structure and all this kind of stuff. It's really strong right now, but you see that I'm reducing it now just to make it barely visible, but still like enough to give the volume. And after that I'm just adding a bit of occlusion. And basically the occlusion is just like some shadows. But since I like to paint more with lights, I'm just adding like some core shadows, you know, like I'm not thinking too much about projected shadows, more about things that are in front of creating like core shadows and other things. You see that I'm just like painting darkers here and there. The hair on the inner tights, just to make sure that I have a decent enough contrast. And this is not my final painting step. I'm just preparing the whole painting so I can start the final painting process. And here I'm just painting this layer a bit. You see that I locked the transparency of the layer, and I'm just painting it and making the background a bit darker so the character can pop a bit more. See, without lines, how the character is looking, it's almost shaping up almost completely. And now what I did, I just create a selection with lines. So if you control click the layer, you get a selection of the layer, and I did this for the line and for the orange base, and now my highlights are limited by that. I didn't use only the orange base because the orange base is not exactly the size of the line art. So if I control click the orange layer and control shift click on the lines, I get the selection from both. So now my ring lights, this white light, it goes right on top of my line art. So I don't have any line art like escaping, you know. So I went back and added a bit of dark on her legs, and this helps me bring the focus to the top part of the character. And I also added a bit of like purple tint to the background. It's reading like black right now, but it was real black, and since the whole character has a bit of blue shade, the true black was reading a bit like reddish. So just adding a tint of purple to the dark background made it read like black more than the actual black, you know. So as you can see here, I'm starting the final refinement painting. I named this layer group refine, and I start painting. And I start by the faces, by the face of the character, because that's the part that's gonna determine like most of how the character is perceived. And it's one of the parts that change most when you paint, because this anime style that I'm using, it's not really like 100% anime, but it's heavily inspired, and the face is really simplified. So when you paint, you add volume, and all this volume change a lot the base you had, because the base are basically just lines, and since it's so stylized, it's hard to translate this volume. So I know that the face is gonna change, so I start by it and try to keep like the closer to what I had in my head. I try to just try to get to this idea, this visualization, this mental image that I had of the character. I try to translate it on the render. And usually what helps me is to think of my character as an action figure. So it makes it easier to imagine the face in 3D. Because if you imagine it as like just a flat illustration or cell shading illustration, it's hard to see the volume. But if you imagine as an action figure, and even if you have an action figure of a anime character, you can just look at it. Like if you don't have, you can look at photos on the internet, but it really helps you see how the stylization is done. So don't be afraid of going from this kind of reference. And here I'm just using my same brush that I use for the lines, but I'm using it to blend, and you can see how easy it is to use this brush to blend, because you can sample the colors, and since the software makes this so fast that you can just sample and paint, and with the colors that are laid as a base, I can basically just sample colors from my whole drawing and keep blending them. And the way I'm blending them, I'm using the pen pressure. So if I press it more, it's more opaque. If I press it less, it's less opaque. And I'm using this and a bit of my soft brushes to get the blend I want. And keep in mind that I'm not shooting for this really smooth blending. I want to have some of brush strokes. I really like to have those brush strokes showing, and the blending looks beautiful here. The colors don't get dulled down when they're blending, and you can configure this blending mode. I don't have it in my brush, but you can have your brush to blend a bit with the colors underneath it when you're painting. So if you want this like a bit more of this oil paint, you can get it like super fast, and it really gives more color to your character. It's even more realistic colors, I would say, because when the colors blend to each other, they absorb a bit of the other color, and they become a third color. So just using a light version of the color you're painting doesn't cut. And using the opacity of your brush, there are some software that don't blend color very well when you use opacity, but Clip Studio really does a great job blending colors when you use just the opacity to do it. What I'm saying is, like, for example, if you have a green plane and you're painting like blue on top of it, even if you paint this blue in 20% opacity, this part where the blue, you're seeing through the blue and seeing the green that's underneath, it looks super nice, this blending. It looks vivid. In some other softwares you get this color dulled down. It doesn't look like realistic at all, and you need to go and paint this this by yourself. You need to color correct manually. And you see like how just with a couple brush strokes I get the blending of those tapes pretty nicely. I just changed a bit of color, like each one of them has a bit of a different tone, just to make it makes it a bit less bland, this area. And I didn't talk about it, but the reflections for this plastic mini dress that she's wearing were basically white with lower opacity, and it gives me like this nice effect, and it's really rough, but it gives a pretty nice effect. And for the legs now, I'm using a bit of the blue that I painted for the skylight earlier. You can see on the purple socks it really shows. And I'm just sampling the darker part and painting a bit of the folds. Same thing for the shorts. And I'm just adding a bit of more dark and to bring the contrast back to her face. And I'm trying to focus on the top of the character. You see that I'm adding some wrinkles for the legs, but I'm doing it a bit more rough than I did on the upper part, and that's something that allows you to control the interest of the picture. You know, if you get more sharp lines, more contrasts, more vivid colors, it can be a contrast by light, by hue. I mean, by value, by hue, by saturation. Every time you bring more contrast, you draw more attention. So I have some contrast here on the shoes, but the really sharp lines and high contrast, it's also on the neck and head, especially on her arms. That's like complex mechanic things, so they have a lot of small parts that are really contrasting. Yeah, so I'm just gonna go back to the face now, because I felt that the face was missing a bit of contrast, so I'm adding a bit of shadows for the reason I was explaining earlier. If you have a lot of contrast in other parts, and the attention goes to these parts. And I'm just adding a bit of tint to the eyelashes using like a lighter color. So now I'm pretty happy with the result. I think the render it's working nicely. And I'm gonna start like just adding some glow to the glowing parts, because they are already saturated but they are not really glowing. So I just added some I copied the glowing layer and added it as screen mode and saturated it, so you can see like how the color is pretty bright. And now I did the same thing. I copied the ring light and blurred it a bit, so I can have a bit of glow on the ring light. Yeah. And now I'm just like finishing up the background, just make sure that she's not standing on a flat background, and doing basically just the final touches to bring the image to completion. And there's another thing that I really liked, how the selection tool on the Clip Studio works. If you just go for my shortcut is Shift T, and you get this mesh to transform, and you can just like make last minute corrections. Like after I finished the drawing, I thought the head was a bit too big, so I went ahead and changed it, and this is the result. I'm just like doing some final touches and post-production, and you know, like the process was super fast, and I really enjoyed drawing this on Clip Studio. I've been using it a lot for sketching and concept, not as much for painting, and that was basically the second time that I painted a whole illustration on Clip Studio, and I'm really pleased. It went like much faster than I thought, and I managed to replicate my brushes exactly the same, and even the finishing process where I add a bit of noise and then sharpen up, the drawing, I managed to do exactly the same on Clip Studio, and I would say that for the painting, I was really impressed how smooth it was, like how I managed to get the shapes, to get the volume and everything right. So guys, I hope you enjoyed it. That's the final piece. I had a lot of fun drawing it, and I hope you guys learned a bit about how my process works and how I use the Clip Studio to make this illustration and the concept. So thanks for watching.